Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. If you're watching out on the webcam, you're like, hey, Ness shaved and got a haircut. Yeah, I'm going to the beach. We're doing the Mako thing this weekend down in Ocean City, Maryland, where I've made a lot of memories. Some I can even talk about. The Maryland Lottery presents our Pressure Luck as well as the Lucky Sevens doubler. This might be our last segment with the 26th anniversary because I've got the 27th anniversary right up here on the screen. All I got to do is change her out. We will be doing that. Senator Chris Van Hollen is committed. Controller Brooke Learman will join us. Representatives of all sorts of city and state government. My favorite Republicans are coming on this week, if that means anything to anybody as well. So if you're still listening, we'll be down at the beach doing our thing. And we'll also be doing the Crab Cake Tour beginning next Thursday. And the whole schedule's up at Baltimore Positive. Big month ahead here for eating. I just unleashed number 22, which was clean cuisine in Owings Mills. Our friends at Fiesta Mexicana, still a part of my breakfast this morning on day 3, as promised, with the Tres Leches cake. Luke, I know you're watching the food. I mean, my food's more interesting than how many. I had more meals yesterday than the Orioles had hits. And I know on Christian Faith Night, of which you share, there was an interesting post-game thing, and they sold. Like, I looked up and saw the attendance. I'm like, it's not a bad. What were they giving away? Oh, they were giving away God at this point. And I don't know, man, if there's any intervention, if I could call George Burns right now and bring him in and say, fix this mess. We went through that for an hour the other day, but well-pitched game from Dean Kramer.
It was, but I mean, the lead of the day is what we found out before the game, which is Zach Eflin out for the year. He's having back surgery to repair a herniated disc. Probably not shocking when he's been on the IL a couple times with that lower back issue, but certainly, anyone who had any designs, thoughts, considerations at this point for a qualifying offer for him, I think that feels like that's out the window. I mean, maybe you talk to him about a more reasonable deal, but that's certainly not your plan A scenario for a starting pitcher at this point in time. But the big one, and I think we've all kind of been bracing for this, considering I think Thursday marks 3 weeks since the Orioles put Felix Bautista on the IL. Tony Mansolino announced before the game, quote, significant shoulder injury. He's going to see a specialist here in the coming days. I assume another specialist, and they'll have more information about that. But he's obviously out for the rest of this year. We don't know about what that means for next year. But when you hear the word significant, when it comes roughly 3 weeks after, or not roughly, a little over 3 weeks after he last pitched, that's not good, right? So it just adds. And as I kind of joked as I posted the article on my Facebook page on social media, we keep saying it can't get any worse, and the Orioles keep proving us wrong with how this year has gone. I mean, we've talked so much about bad decisions, bad leadership, bad play on the field, all those different things, right? And all that applies. But when you take a step back and look at it from 30,000 feet, the number of injuries they've had, and this isn't to excuse Mike Elias. There's a heck of a lot of work here that needs to be done over the next, 7 months, 8 months until they get to opening day next year. But
you're now an organization where if you get drafted here or here, your dad's saying, what are they doing to make guys' arms fall off in Baltimore?
But you know what?
That's an industry issue.
Go look at the Dodgers list right now. I mean, like really, and look, that's not to completely turn a blind eye to it. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is we're at the point now where I'm not sure that there was an offseason to be accomplished that the Orioles wouldn't still be somewhere in this. Like, okay, maybe they wouldn't be in last place, but we'd be talking about their ability to make the playoffs or to make a run in the playoffs or whatever. You just get to a point where you look at these injuries and you just say, okay. And again, that's not to excuse everything else that does absolutely need to be addressed, and the underperformance and the manager and coaching situation and what you're going to do with your pitching staff and how are you going to rebuild your entire bullpen that now is looking more and more likely that Felix Bautista's not going to even be in it, right? So it's not good. I mean, again, they could have signed Burns, they could have signed Santander, they could have gone out and signed someone like Blake Snell, and we'd still
Who
be
were your
talking
guys in
about.
the offseason? Who did you want him to
Well,
sign?
hey, I'm full disclosure, my not my guy, but a guy that
Bueller. Bueller?
yeah, and that hasn't worked
Yeah.
out. So like,
That was
look,
McCallum's guy. Now,
it's
my
tough.
guy was Scooble this time last year on the trade thing, and I thought the Crochet thing was interesting.
I
But
mean,
that
Crochet
talks
was the
about giving up the holidays or like that's where we are. All of a
yeah,
sudden, my Colton Cowser, people are looking around saying, oh, wow, you were talking about dealing him in May. And I'm like, well, that's what all these guys are. They're a stock. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They're no different a stock than the Orioles were a stock when you and I went up to Toronto and got our passports checked in Niagara Falls and drove around and thought they're good to be a contender. They're
yeah,
not going to be a seller. They're not going to be in last place. Batista's arm's not going to fall off. Tyler O'Neill's not going to have 110 bat. Well, maybe he will.
mhm, yeah.
I mean, some of this you could look at and say maybe. Some of it with the Eflins and I mean, certainly Charlie Moore. I mean, anybody that's over 32, Suarez, Gibson, just go down the list of the. I mean, this from the outside in, if you and I come in and we bought the team, we'd fire Elias. I mean, and by the way, I've been doing a lot
Are you
with
sure about that? I don't know. Like,
well, I think if I was a
I mean,
new owner, if I was
I'm
a new owner and this was my first taste, was 2 seasons
if I was a new
of
owner and if this is my first taste, I'd probably been wanting to get out. I mean, that's how bad, that's how badly
well,
it's gone. Yeah,
maybe the old man's doing that. I don't know. He's a
sure,
75-year-old man. I mean, he's a billionaire. Why does he want to
sure.
deal with this? Why does he
Well,
want me saying his name on the radio? Why does the Whistler need to be around to resurrect this? They can't resurrect it. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, they have no I mean, God knows what ish they're going to do to the stadium. Like, who knows what they're going to do to Johnny Bravo and club level Janet Marie Smith's playground to F it up further than the Angelos clowns did, moving the fence in and out. And like, I mean, there's just so much wrong, and I have zero confidence. What do you have confidence in? You have confidence in Elias? I'll tell you this, dude, and this is since I got Ishy on Monday and I lost my mind because, dude, they're in last place. Nobody's going to the games. I mean, Rock Kabako and Rob Long, they're not allowed to be pissed off. Kevin Brown's not allowed to be pissed off. They're not. Brett Hollander's not allowed to be pissed off. None of them have jobs if they're pissed off. So I will bring a requisite amount of pissed offedness in regard to this orange disaster of 40, not the Curio logo, the disaster of this baseball operation for the 27 years I've owned the radio station here and had to come on and opine about awfulness in August. But I've been doing a lot of AI stuff and training this summer and learning and trying to stay young. So when I shave, I still look, I don't know, 52 and not 57. I saw something about leadership that popped up. It was one of those graphs that, those things that infographics that pop up on Facebook that I screenshot about AI leadership, running businesses, things that I try to get better in life. And the first one was accountability. I mean, like right at the top of the Wooden chart, right at the top of Brian Billick's chart, right at the top of anyone's chart that runs anything. And Mike Elias has really, this has just been poor all the way around and not getting in front of it and not being out in front of it and not being, I mean, whatever that little mea culpa to the fans was the other day. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't, I have no confidence that they're going to fix this, that it's going to be markedly better next year.
that and that's fine. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that everything's going to be fine. Because you made the comment about if I were running the team, would I fire? I'd give Mike Elias one more winter. I think I fully recognize. I mean, look, I was more pessimistic about their offseason than you were when we were talking about this back in March. So I think I'm
All
coming
of you
from,
were, by the way. You, Dave Sheinin,
but
John Eisenberg,
but I say
everybody I sat with.
with that being acknowledged, I think that's where I'm coming from a place. And this isn't to say that your opinion that you would move on from him is invalid. It's not. We're This is subjective. We're talking about this, right? So my
I'm just
thought
saying it's
on
more
this,
likely because of a new owner. This
sure,
guy didn't hire him.
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
at that point
and
with
that's
this.
fine, and that's fine. And look, if that happens, I'm not going to sit here and be stunned. I'm just telling you what I would do proceeding from here. Over the last year and a half, has he done a particularly good job? No, of course not. That said, I'm also not going to ignore what the 5 years leading up to that and see the good work that was done. So I need to see a Mike Elias that's changed. I need to see a Mike Elias that is learning from mistakes. Need to see a Mike Elias that makes a home run of a hire for a manager and to fill out a coaching staff that to me completely needs to be rebuilt because you're not seeing nearly enough success stories. I mean, heck, you're seeing regression from your young core. I'm not talking about the three guys that they're trotting out there in the outfield at the moment, right? I mean, that's that's secondary. That's not even secondary. That's at the bottom of the list. Embarrassing as it might be on a given night right now. But, I need to see that. I need to see what this offseason is going to look like. I need to see one, ownership giving him the money to spend, and two, spending the money wisely to rebuild this bullpen
Well,
and
that's
to
all the
add
more
starting
reason
pitching.
if he's going to be the one doing the shopping, I have to have more of a level of. I mean, he fired his manager on Saturday and hit until Tuesday.
I
Like
know. We've
I
talked
don't.
about that. I
You're
know.
done. You're just done for me. It's just. It's like the difference between little white lies and like, nah, I don't trust you anymore. I don't trust
Okay.
you. And I tell
Okay.
you what, from a
I mean,
fan's perspective, just me being a fan, thinking that he's going to be the one that's going to dole out the next $500 million that the organization throws out, because that's going to take that kind of money, right? I mean, they're going to have to sign a player, a $300 million player, and a couple more 80 and $90 million
I don't know if it needs to
mistakes
be
in the
300
Tyler
million.
O'Neills, but they're gonna spend a significant amount of. I mean, come on, dude. Next 5 years, they better spend $750 million, right?
Well, I,
I mean,
I
they bet. So he's
depends
gonna
who, like,
spend
who's it
some of
on.
that, right?
Sure, sure. I mean, I disagree with the idea that they're going to go out and sign a $300 million free agent. Now they might.
They're their own guy. I'm talking
Okay,
about.
fair enough. Okay, fine, fine,
Dude,
good.
I am in your Disney world of
Oh,
they're going to turn this around and be a playoff team. Well, if they are, then Gunnar
a
Henderson,
lot
Adley
needs to be
Rutschman, or
done.
Jackson Holiday they're gonna have to get paid a boatload of money, a
Well,
boatload of money.
they don't need to keep all of those. I'm not re-signing Adley Rutschman. I mean, I'm
There
just
you go.
calling it
You're
now.
done with him.
I'm
Okay.
no, no, no. That I'm done with him in the idea that I mean he's 27 already, right?
Is
I
he going to
mean,
hit 295 and hit
even if
28 home
he
runs and drive in
even
111
if he
runs next year?
returns to where he was a couple years ago, I mean, you and I had this conversation even before Adley Rutschman's struggles began over the last year. And by the way, he is hitting since he's come back from the IL. Go look at his numbers since he's been back. He's one of the few guys in that lineup hitting right now. But that aside, I mean, I don't see where it's a good investment to sign a catcher who, yes, he's been a two-time All-Star. I don't think he's the guy that they thought he was going to be six years ago. That doesn't mean he's a bad ball player. It doesn't mean that he's a bust.
Well, dude, those
Doesn't
first 3 months, you
it
and I
does
were like, oh my God, he's the best player on the
I mean,
team.
the first 2 calendar years.
Yeah.
I mean, he was everything you thought he was going to be. And since then, I mean, and some of that's the defense. But I'm getting in the weeds here a little bit. Going back to the point you
But
were
getting
making.
back to who's spending the money
Yeah,
and
I
who's
mean,
buying it.
and they need to spend money. Sure, I'll say over and over, they spent a lot of money this past winter. Go look at what their payroll was compared to what it had been the previous year. Now, it wasn't the long-term commitments, but they spent a good chunk of change last winter. Now, it certainly wasn't spent well, right? It wasn't spent wisely. I mean, hey, the Orioles gave Chris Davis $160 million at one point. They're still giving him money with the deferments, and all that. So, but they have a lot of work to do. There's no question about that. And let me be clear, because I am saying I would give Mike Elias one more winter, that is not me necessarily saying that I have 100% confidence that he's going to turn it around. I don't. But at the same time, whoever I would hire to replace him, how am I going to have 100% confidence there? So my biggest hope is one, they can't duplicate this season. I mean, this has been when you look at a bell curve or you look at what these guys do with analytics, right? I mean, they have predictive models that they enter in all the data, they have all their players, and they kind of go through all these different scenarios. This is the percent likelihood of us being an 88 win team, a 90 win team, an 86 win team. I mean, this is what we're seeing is like a bottom 2% kind of outcome, right? No one can forecast the number of injuries that they've had. No one can forecast the amount of underperformance that they've had. Now, that's not me just shrugging my shoulders and saying, oh, everything's fine next year. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. No, far from it. They've got to make a lot of adjustments. As I have pointed out to you, even before this trade deadline in this draft, even if you go back to last year's draft, the last couple drafts, Mike Elias has emphasized pitching more than he had in previous drafts. Does that mean that you're going to see the fruits of that right away? No, of course not. So, yeah, they're going to have to go out and find pitching, sign it, trade for it, right? Still try the minor league sign free agent signings, diamonds in the rough like Albert Suarez's. They're going to have to do all of that. Like it has to be an all-encompassing, multi-pronged attack. But that said, and that's where maybe we'll bring this back to Tuesday night more specifically, because they got great pitching from Dean Kramer on Tuesday night. He pitched 8 innings. That was his longest start since his complete game against Houston going on 3 years ago. He was fantastic. They didn't score a single run. They have scored 23 runs in 10 August games. And yes, the bottom of your lineup being Ryan Noda, Dylan Carlson, and Greg Allen certainly is going to be prohibitive of you being the most formidable offense you can be. But
sounds like a B League game down in Fort Myers at JetBlue Park against the Red Sox in March.
And this is what happens.
And when Brandon Young is starting, it sounds even more like that.
No question. But this is what happens when you trade Cedric Mullins and Ramon Laureano at the trade deadline, and then a week later, Colton Cowser and Tyler O'Neill both.
Dude, I sat here in June and said, if you hate it now, wait till you see it in August.
Sure.
And there's no impetus to think that Elias wasn't going to burn it to the ground to get rid of everything that he felt like he could get rid of. And there was also the point where, like, who was going to play?
Sure.
But knowing that Bautista's arm fell off, and I mean, they've lost innings that they weren't thinking they were going to lose innings, and certainly at bats from outfielders that they didn't feel like they were going to have to give it bats to.
And this is where I made the comment, and this is we all agree it was a bad offseason, right? I was saying even before the season I didn't like the offseason. My point is this has gone so poorly in terms of the injuries, and you can't forecast for that number of injuries that they've endured this year. My point is, even if Mike Elias had a better offseason, I'm still not sure the Orioles would be in a position right now to make the playoffs, right? That's how poorly this has gone. But the point I was making, as I talked about the outfield, Jackson Holliday's in the lineup still. Jordan Westburg's still in the lineup. Gunnar Henderson's in the lineup. Adley Rutschman's in the lineup. Ryan Mountcastle, who's hasn't played a whole lot this year, but is a major league hitter, right? Proven.
These aren't exhibition games, even if it feels like it.
And Kobe Mayo's in the lineup, and they still got shut out. They've averaged under 3 runs a game in August. For as much as we had every expectation about the bullpen being a disaster, and we know the starting pitching's been a disaster for most of the year, that hasn't been the reason they're losing games over the last week and a half. Their offense has been the reason why. They've actually, not every night, let me be clear, and their bullpen has had a couple meltdowns. There's no doubt about that. But if you had told me how these first 10 games had gone from a pitching standpoint, I would have been hopeful that they would have won a couple more games. They're not scoring any runs. I mean, they just aren't. So that's part of where I look at this thing and say, look, we can put Mike Elias and ownership right at the top of the list, right? And then we can put the coaches right underneath that. These players have to be accountable too. And when you look at their group, their young core, it's very underwhelming, and that's the nicest way to put it, right? We've talked about this. I mean, Jackson Holliday has had a better year than last year. His OPS is under 700 right now. I mean, he still has a long way to go to prove that he's a 1-1. Now, he's 21 years old. There's nuance talking about all these guys right now.
Average major league ball player for this moment.
Right now, and look, for a 21-year-old, if everyone else were where they needed to be in their development.
Can't come back out next year and hit 214 in
Like
the first 400 at bats.
he needs to be better next. No, but
Yeah.
he needs to be better next year. I mean, he has a 692 OPS right now, and again, he's already better than he was last year. So the point is, he needs to continue that trajectory. Jordan Westberg, hey, he's put up pretty nice numbers. The problem was the availability, right? The problem was he had a hamstring injury. I don't have too many concerns about Jordan Westberg, other than you need to stay on the field. Gunnar Henderson has put up overall, he doesn't have bad numbers, but where is the home run power? I mean, Gunner's hitting 284, by the way. I mean, that was one thing, the last couple of years people talked about, what can he hit for a higher average? Now, he still strikes out. I mean, that's the game. I see people talk about strikeouts. Go look. Even the teams that don't strike out a whole lot still strike out a ton in modern baseball, and that's a commentary on the game, and I'll hear that. I'd like to see him walk more. I'd like to see all these guys walk more. I mean, even guys that like Colton Cowser, who walked at a pretty decent rate last year, not walking at all this year, right? So Adley Rutschman, we've been over that, right? Kobe Mayo has scuffled over the last week and a half since the trade deadline. I want to see him get back on track. So, you want to see Cowser get back in the lineup, right? I mean, we can talk about all these other moves that Mike Elias needs to make, and I wholeheartedly agree, but so much of this is still going to come back on that group collectively. And I'm not even going to put Heston Kjerstad in that group anymore. I mean, he has some kind of health issue that the club is being very hush hush about. I haven't caught wind of what it is. I'm trying to be respectful of that from a humanity standpoint, but certainly not counting on him at any meaningful to any meaningful degree moving forward. You hope Basayo and Beavers are going to come up here in the coming days and look good.
What's the status on that, and what's the
August
rookie
15th.
rule and
August 15th.
Okay.
August 15th. Now, I'm not saying
Educate the old fart
Sure.
in me about all the awards and all the money
Right.
and all the contracts and all of that.
What's ended up happening? We always used to think about it in terms of service time, right? We used to think about how a guy wouldn't be on the opening day roster because you were trying to hold back their service time, and many teams have done this, the Orioles included, right? I mean, it's some people would refer to it as a bug for the system, and the teams would say, hey, it's a feature, right? I mean, we get an extra year of club control. So, but for years it was that, or you would hold a guy back until what, June something, for trying to avoid Super 2 status for arbitration. But obviously the PPI, the performance incentive program. I probably butchered the actual title of it because I don't have it in front of me. But remember, a few years back that was introduced, with the last CBA, and this idea of if players were called up in May, like they would be in the past, and they won Rookie of the Year, they would get a full year of service time. And teams, and there are caveats to this. Obviously, part of it is you need to be on top 100 lists. The idea was to do this so that teams wouldn't just hold guys back deliberately. So that was done to kind of fix the beginning of the year service time manipulation. So what we've seen now, and teams have kind of responded now, is when you have these prospects like a Samuel Basayo or Dylan Beavers after the monster season that he's had at AAA, because Dylan Beavers has not been a top 100 prospect. So under that part of the rule, he would not be eligible for it. But if you maintain his rookie status, which, it's 45 days, I guess it is, in the major leagues, or a certain number of at-bats, well, that takes you right around August 15th, 16th. Right there is the cutoff. But the idea is you maintain their rookie status, and then they can go into next year still being eligible to win Rookie of the Year. And if they do, then you get a draft pick, right? At the end of the first round, you get a compensatory pick, whatever.
Colton Cowser earned them one?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're seeing now. Instead of the beginning of the season service time manipulation, which still happens, mind you, not specifically to the Orioles, but generally speaking, now we're seeing that become more of a thing. Whereas in the past, I don't think teams really cared as much about exhausting rookie eligibility. So
I mean, this is
that's
really going to be a nerd time for you and me in the off season to be talking about Players Association, the labor war,
sure.
and current issues in regard to where the fissure is going to be, not just financially, but sort of ethically and spiritually about player movement, arbitration eligible, all of that. I have to relearn that from 1994 because some things have changed, and this is homework for you. But just what's ideal, what's not ideal about this? Because I think a bunch of the young guns got together after the Joe Torre and Tommy Lasorda era and tried to get more creative on rewarding teams that would do things the right way in regard to rookie, just all of that, right? This is a little bit of a biscuit that they've built into the game around the edges that not maybe everybody knows about, but they only understand it when they're like, bring up this guy, bring in Elias that nobody's. I mean, the ish I see on Twitter, I mean, it's just unbelievable how uneducated the fan base can be because they're not great about teaching their fans about really how esoteric. Dude, it took me half my life to figure out what a balk was or what
Yeah.
waivers were, right? Like these are terms that like the people collecting the bobbleheads,
Oh,
go around and ask them. They may or may not know it, but it's absolutely fundamental to understanding why Basayo's not behind home plate 2 weeks ago.
right. And one correction, they not for for Colton Cowser, for Gunnar Henderson winning Rookie of the Year two
I'm
years ago.
sorry, my
Right.
bad.
No, 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 it's fine because I had to check myself on that as well. The way it works is a player earns a full year of service time. So like Adley Rutschman back in 22, he finished second. Remember, Julio Rodriguez won Rookie of the Year. Adley Rutschman earned a full year of service time for finishing second. Teams get draft picks if it's a PPI eligible player that wins Rookie of the Year. So
But this is a complex little, fun little
it,
model to incent to teams, incent players, make agents happy that this has been installed in recent
yeah,
times
and
because teams were
gaming the
purposely.
system,
Well, I
sure.
mean, Angelos. I mean, just the whole way through.
But
Just all the way through.
they game the system as far as the beginning of the year. But what's happened is you now have teams gaming basically the previous year in August and September,
Right.
right?
Right
So
now. Right.
yeah, so that's why you're not seeing Basayo and Beavers. Look, I get it. I understand it, right? That said, I also think when you look at this, and this is where I kind of go back to the young core, right? And where they are, where their headspace has to be at this point. And this is where I have concerns because there is a human element at work here. You have a young core that saw an underwhelming offseason, that saw this team get off to a lousy start, right? And they have to own it, right? I mean, those guys have underperformed as well. This isn't me giving them a pass. However, you get to the trade deadline. I think even young ball players understand the reality of if you're in last place and out of the playoff race, that you're going to see pending free agents traded. So I don't think that was a bridge too far. I think they understood that. However, you also traded Ramon Laureano, Ramon Arias, Brian Baker at the beginning of the month, Andrew Kittredge, who all had some form of potential club control for 2026. So they're looking at that and they're saying, okay, well, Arias could have been our utility player next year, and Laureano was one of our best hitters this year, and you traded him. And well, our bullpen already wasn't great to begin with, and now you've traded a couple guys that could have been part of that next year. And so they're kind of scratching their heads, right? And
Well,
humor
this
me.
is when
This
you
is
give
my
Brian Baker away and you think he was worth 70 or 80 innings for next year.
right.
But what do I
And,
know?
and again,
Kittredge had like a
this
perfect inning the other day.
and this is not me saying that Mike Elias was did the wrong thing here. I'm trying to step into the shoes of these young players in the young core. They're seeing that, and then they're seeing right after that, okay, why why are we signing minor league like the Cubs minor league, Greg Allen was in the Cubs system. Why are we signing him and not calling up Dylan Beavers? Like what why is Basayo still at AAA? So if you're these young players, the message that you're getting over and over and over by these actions are doesn't matter, right? Nothing matters right now. So My concern with that, especially when you've had an interim manager for the final 4.5 months of the season, is, man, there's a lot of losing going on, and I really, it's the old adage, it's tough to stop losing. That I
What's
don't
another
want.
reason to not bring Basayo and these guys up to subject them to it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to think about it in that way,
Well,
you
we've talked
could.
so much about Adam Jones and Joe Orsulak,
Sure,
and dude, there's been a whole boatload of losing around here.
sure.
There's no one that's touched this organization, Cal Ripken included, that didn't do a whole boatload of
Cal
losing
did a ton
around
of
here.
losing the second half of his career, or not even the
I
second
mean, the
half.
minute Angelos took over, it was kind of over. And even before that, it was kind of skating away from EBW before they got down to Camden
Yeah.
Yards. But Camden Yards, the television network, the arrival of the Nationals, horrific ownership, horrific drafting in a way that everything you and I've talked about here the last 5 minutes that's bored the crap out of everybody. But Angelos fired Mike Flanagan for drafting Matt Wieters because he forbid him to draft someone that was not going to come around to my way of thinking on the contractual obligation to the organization.
Yeah.
So, they were never drafting the best players. And that went on for a decade and a half, dude. And signing the wrong players, whether it was David Segui and Jeff Conine
Sure.
and Sidney Ponson, or whether it was giving Chris Davis money. Or look, the Machado thing, I had my own issues as to whether he was a pile diver or not. I know he's a
But they
Hall of
bought, but
Famer,
they botched it one
but
way or the
they
other.
didn't get value out of
Right. I
him
mean, they,
one way
they
or
should have
another.
traded him a year
They just do
earlier. Right.
so.
Sure.
And
Well,
they raise. I mean, we don't even get on the ticket prices. What they've done to
and
media people, their
sure.
television, Mickey Mouse television network, just all of it. The potentiality. My Deepak Chopra for the day. My pure potentiality. Um, just
But I would say a lot of what you just cited correctly, Mike Elias did address a lot of that over the first 5 years. And so that's where I look at this, and I do struggle with the idea of just saying he's gone, no questions asked, move on, or we recognize this for what it was, which obviously was missteps, but also underperformance, awful injury luck, coaching, poor coaching, or coaching that needs to be better, things that need to be revamped, things that need to be tweaked. And I think about that compared to starting over entirely, and honestly not seeing no evidence from the new ownership group of a capability of knowing that they would hire. I never want to say the right person, because I always think there's more than one correct answer, but you need to go out and find a correct answer if you're going to do that. That's why I am begrudgingly, I don't know if that's the right word, maybe hesitation in saying this. I am inclined to give Mike Elias one more offseason, but if we're talking about this a year from now in a very similar light, of course he should be gone, right? Of course, you have no choice.
I would just say this. I mean, from these bean counters, these clowns that are running this joint right now, that's why, like, I have no confidence that they know anything about what they're doing inside of the stadium to make it look representative. Or I don't even know who's in charge of $600 million. I'll see Craig Thompson down at the beach, and I'm sure he'll whistle by me with one of his lawyer buddies, and not giving me any answers into anything, into where they're putting the Jim Henneman press box up into the corner of the wherever. There's a lack of transparency. There's a lack of accountability that goes into being a billionaire. I've learned that with Bashad. You saw that when he looked at me on the pool deck like he's never seen me in his life. That the off-season part of this, if they want to deodorize this for the fans, hang the general manager and say we hire Buck Showalter and people come running back with their Birdland membership because they need to sell tickets this offseason. I mean, forget the baseball team and fixing the baseball team. That's your gig, that's your game and all that. They need to make some noise to give people who are fans confidence. And I don't know that Elias, no matter what he does, I think he's in the Fred Flintstone parlance, he's square now. I think the fans have turned on him in a way that is
You
going to
can't let
affect
the
their
fans
ticket
run the
sales.
baseball, but you can't let the fans run the baseball team. I mean,
I
and
don't
look,
disagree with that,
but I'm
but
just saying, like, if
I saw how many people were there Saturday night, though.
look, it's bad, and this I've been plenty critical of Mike Elias. My point is, Nestor, I'm not sure that there is anything they can do in the offseason that's going to truly salvage that
Reputation?
isn't going to be more of a wait and see kind of deal and just seeing if this team's better next year. I mean, you know, what? try try to go trade for Shohei Ohtani or something? I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
I guess my point is Westberg can be Westberg and Holiday can be going to the Hall of something, and they can all be really good next year, but who's going to pitch? I mean, at the end of the day, all of the stuff we talked about when we thought this was a hitting machine, including Tyler O'Neill, put anybody you want in
okay,
there. If you thought Kerstad was going to stick,
but
if you thought
Nestor,
Mayo was going to stick, they could score
who
six,
was
eight
their
runs a game.
who was their rotation when they won 101 games 2 years ago?
I know those. Well, who was their rotation when they had Wang and Chen and
No,
that stack of guys?
but
Nobody
that
looked at them and thought they were going to be great. Chris
so that's
Tillman,
but my point there, that right there is why there is a path. A lot has to go well. There's no doubt about that. They need things to go well internally, and yes, they need to go out and make some really, really good moves. But my point is, this isn't a case where you necessarily the only path is to go out and sign a pitcher to a $250 million contract. And I'm not suggesting that you were definitively saying that, but the point is there is a lot of ways to rebuild a pitching staff. And I will continue to go back to using the Toronto Blue Jays as an example. Go look at what the Blue Jays were a year ago at this time. Everyone thought they were cooked. Everyone thought they were done. Everyone thought that they're the Blue Jays were kind of 2 years ahead of the Orioles in terms of their rebuild and their young core and getting to the playoffs, not necessarily having a whole lot of success in the playoffs.
I was in
And
Toronto that night at Massey Hall with Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, where the whole place was abuzz that they needed Shohei Ohtani in
right.
order to be a
And they
team
didn't get
like
them.
this,
And,
right?
they were in last place last year, and everyone was completely down on them. And look where they are a year later. Now, that doesn't mean the Blue Jays are fixed completely and that they're going to win the World Series and all that, because just making the playoffs isn't the end game either, right? My point is fortunes can change really quickly. And when things snowball and go really poorly, it can really spiral really quickly. And we've seen that happen. And you still look at this team, really, you kind of go back to where they are right now, which is what, going into Wednesday, 13 games under 500. You still go back to what was the major driving force for them being that bad. It was a 7-23 stretch back in late April into the third week of May. And obviously you don't eliminate that, but beyond that, if you took that out, just humor me for a moment. If you took that specific 3.5 week stretch out, they've kind of been a team that's kind of been right around 500. And go look at the wild card race right now. There are teams that are a few games over 500 right now that are very much in the thick of it. That's not to forgive them and say everything is okay. That's to show that there is a path to getting back on track. And when things spiral, they can go really poorly. And in the same way, back in 2023, do I think that team from a true talent level was really a 101 win team in terms of like being this dominant, unbelievable juggernaut powerhouse? No, but they were really good. And then things got rolling and they did well in one-run games. The 2012 team was another example of that. Go look at their run differential in 2012. We talked about that an entire summer of whether that was sustainable or not. They ended up winning 93 games. When things go badly, they can go really badly. And this spiraled early, and they've never been able to recover. Now, that is not an excuse. That is not everything is fine. That is not a guarantee that they're going to be back in contention next year. They have a lot that they have to do. My goodness, this is the definition of a heavy lifting offseason for a general manager who has not operated in that fashion, right? He's been methodical. He's been much more conservative with what he's done. So, yeah, there is going to be a major challenge for Mike Elias to step outside of his comfort zone if he's going to be the guy, assuming the ownership is going to give him one more offseason, which, based on how he operated at the trade deadline, I'm guessing he's going to get another offseason, right? We talked about that 2 weeks ago. Looking at those moves and the kind of moves that were made were indicative of someone who thought he was going to be around for at least one more off season. So I don't know, man. And look, I was as critical as you were. I'm still critical about how he handled the Brandon Hyde firing, and more specifically the aftermath of that firing, hiding for 3 days and then talking to a reduced crowd in Milwaukee about it. That was very poor leadership. There's no question about that.
Again, I keep going back to
And
like,
if you
I
go
don't
back
know
to that,
what they
that's
do
fine.
that's not poor. I mean, uh, uh, uh,
Well,
just in a general sense, it's all been really poor since this guy bought the team. We're a year and a half into this.
okay,
I haven't
okay.
seen
I
anything.
I didn't know if you were talking about Elias's tenure or more specifically, the last year and a half. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and stick up for the new ownership group. I'm with you. What exactly have they
I
brought to the
don't know
table?
what they've done that's been good, and therefore I can't
I mean, the
look
only thing
into my crystal ball and say they're going to renovate the stadium, they're going to renovate the baseball team, they're going to invest a bunch of money. You know what they're going to do? They're just going to make
but then there,
television. They're
but
doing
then
what the
there's no,
Ravens are doing,
but
making
then it
reality
probably does,
television.
but then it probably doesn't matter who they hire. If that's true, and it might be, I don't know.
I
If
think they
that's
need to
true,
reinvigorate, re-inspire. They need to do so many things that they're clearly this group is incapable of doing. That this man has done all that he's going to do, which is come out in his fishing cap, throw out hats, and make a bobblehead of himself and make commercials with himself. Like that, all that happened, and now they're in last place and he's hiding. Guess what? I know all I need to know. I know all I've seen this movie. And to your point, maybe he's sorry he got into it. Maybe he is.
I
And
mean,
you
it
know
might
what?
be. I don't
They
know.
don't know how to fix this. They can't just throw money at it. They can throw bullshit at it, which they're going to try to do, but they can't just throw money at it and have Baltimore people, the people who support this baseball team, even people like me who support the baseball team who were mistreated, they can't get my money again, and they can't get the money from people as well as the investment. They'll get the time, I'll buy the cable television package or whatever, but if you're really going to rope me into a night out down there on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or you're going to get me paying attention to them in the off season enough to write them a check or to show up at their caravan or whatever
Yeah.
thing that's less than it used to be, it's always, and it's not me being a get off my lawn guy about Moonlight Madness and them selling 3 million tickets, but that really did happen.
Yeah.
And it's not happening
And
now.
they
And
and
that
they used to have 10,000 people at FanFest, right? I mean,
like
yeah.
they need, well, whatever that was, it's gone. And Katie Griggs doesn't know anything even about it and doesn't even care to hear about it from people like me. That if I sat with her and said, you do know that I came down here a handful, 5 nights in the 90s where there were 50,000 people at the stadium on a December night, selling out your stadium for a year. That's how, and you're still eating off of that. You're still eating off of that, giving out bobbleheads of Boog Powell. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, they just, you're thinking about it from a baseball thing. And whenever I talk to you, Alan, whatever, great. That's awesome. And that's what nerds do. And that's what we're here for. And there
They,
aren't
they
enough people
but
that
but
think about it
but
that
they've got to
way.
fix that. They've got to fix that. No one's
I
coming to watch a
agree.
lousy
I
team.
agree. But until such time, they have to fix the perception of that to get people's wallets. And between here and next day, it's like the Lamar thing.
How about
They
start with how
Lamar,
about
they
start
can't
with
even fix it in Buffalo.
how
Lamar
about
has to wait until January 29th in order to be able to fix it for the fan base here. Same thing with Harbaugh and all the rest of them. But with the Orioles, they can't
how about
fix
start
this
by
off season.
how about start by not alienating your hardcore of the hardcore fans that you
Well,
just did over the
now you're
last.
in my lane. Now you're in
Yeah,
my lane of what can you
sure.
control.
I mean, they forget about drawing new people. These measures that they just unrolled and the emails that people are getting, they're it's you would almost think they're actively trying to drive people away. You're not recruiting anyone new, but they are pushing away your 29 game plan holders and your 13 game plan holders. I mean, they're absolutely doing that right now.
You're
So,
not
man,
recruiting anyone new. That is inherently But
the
that's my problem.
but
I
I'm
mean, that's what
you're
Christian
not
Night's for. That's what all these nights are for, is to bring people in and give them a little taste of Oriole baseball and make them actually be a baseball fan enough to care about the Rule 5 draft and service time so that they're not out on Twitter being a twit. Bring up a sign, you know what? Dude, if you understand baseball, you would not be. But their fan base doesn't even understand baseball all that well. Like, really, when I see the stuff that gets
but
yelled, but they're the ones buying the tickets, man. And they're the ones that don't like Elias. I don't like Elias because of accountability. They don't like him because of the bullpen. And we began this conversation the first 15 minutes about guys' arms falling off. But I'm just saying, like, the number one thing that they could do is find a new leader to put in front of it, not named Rubenstein or the Whistler, Buck Showalter, something that would be attractive in that Rick Dempsey, Cal Ripken kind of way. You know what I mean? Like something that would be a carrot, not an elixir, not something that would really fix it, Frank Robinson, something that would be popular and maybe fix it. I don't think Elias is going to fix it. I don't think he's a great leader. And I certainly don't think that he's helping them, quote unquote, sell tickets, whatever that means in modern parlance. And they're doing enough damage with people twice as arrogant as him sending out the Birdland memberships, which is its own problem. Again, I asked you 8 minutes ago, what's good about this? None of it. I mean, and as it all comes together with the owner and his financial obligations to his partners at $1.8 billion, and this thing bleeding money, like right now, and then you want me to go 400 million more into Adley Rutschman or whomever, pick player X, Colton Cowser. I want to make everybody happy. But whatever it is, my point is, the Elias, if you don't have the confidence that he's the guy to spend your next $500 million here, because if you're going to be picking around the carcass in the offseason and having a $17 million Charlie Morton and a $15 million Japanese guy I've never heard from, and Charlie Sheen from the California Penal League, I, I don't none of that. I don't expect them to inspire anybody in the offseason. They're not inspiring people. That's my point. Rubenstein's still going to own it. Griggs is still going to be running it, and Elias is still going to be running it in your world, and probably I believe that's the reality that he's going to run it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going well.
I mean, I agree with that. I guess my point with some of what you're saying is, but I'm not sure there is a path that's going to inspire anyone in the offseason, right? Other than just April 1st rolls around and it's a way better product, right? That's how much damage is done here. I'm not sure that there's an offseason to be had that's actually smart in terms of spending money that's necessarily going to wow people to the degree. But first of all, there are very few ball players that actually wholeheartedly, authentically move the needle in terms of tickets. I think it's more like shiny new toys, right? In most cases where you sign someone and you're excited about it, but that's not going to move the needle.
I'm not talking logic here. I'm talking about, like, in reality, is there?
I mean, I would tell you, like,
how are they going to sell a freaking ticket in the offseason? Luke,
they're not going to sell tickets.
You're
they're
fired.
Not
go
sell
work for the Orioles and go help them sell tickets.
I mean,
work
they're
in
not
their ticket department. How are they going to sell tickets?
I mean, based on the model they're rolling out, they're not going to sell tickets. I mean, they're just not.
Right.
So that's where
they're going to continue to bleed money, and their front office is going to be desperate and bean count and ask the fans for money. And Rubenstein and his money bags guys are going to stand there and say, "Where are the wins? Where's the money?" If they care enough, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know what billionaires care about. I know what he cared about: having a bobblehead and being a hero, being a philanthropist in Baltimore.
I can tell you what billionaires care about. They care about money.
They care about
That's
money.
How they become a billionaire.
Okay, fair enough.
Look. I'm not going to sit here and try to paint a rosy picture because it's not rosy right now. We all understand that. That said, and look, I'll hear if you want to fire Mike Elias and hire a new general manager, fine. Like, I'm not going to, believe me, if the Orioles announce that on the last day of the season, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, they're screwed moving forward, right? I'm not at all saying that. I'm trying to look at it as balanced, as realistically as I can, acknowledging that injuries have played a massive part in what's happened for things to go this poorly, acknowledging that they should, and I emphasize should, have plenty of money to spend this offseason when you consider the money that's come off the books and was going to come off the books even before the trade deadline. So they do still have a young core that's intact. They have a farm system that is better than it was a year ago based on the players they've drafted, based on the players they've acquired via trade 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. So there is a lot on paper there to still have, and I don't know, optimism, hope, whatever you want to say. There is a pathway to fixing this, but a lot has to go very well. Now, I will say this, and this aligns with a lot of what you're talking about. Man, I wish there were a Larry Lucchino to hire right now, right? A someone that would be a figurehead, team president, not just a figurehead, because a figurehead implies that they're not really doing anything. A team president who is well versed enough in baseball to act as not as Elias's boss in a way that he's going to overrule him, he or she would overrule him, but in a way that reminding him to see the forest for the trees, in a way that emphasizes that messaging is really important, in a way that never, ever in a million years would have allowed him to fire a manager and not speak to fans and reporters about it for 3 days. Uh, to understand what makes Baltimore Baltimore.
We have an
What makes
ethos to ban reporters. I'm sitting here. I mean, dude. So let's start with what's wrong with them. What's wrong with you people? You don't want questions? Really?
But what I'm saying is if you wanted
Tell him to
something that
stop mistreating Jim Palmer. Tell him that. Start with
sure,
that. Start with that. Stop mistreating Jim Palmer. There. I said it.
but
I needed to say that.
for my solution beyond the baseball part of this, that's what I see. You need a leader in place. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Mike Elias is thrown out, but you need a true leader at the top of the organization in the way that David Modell served in that capacity, in the way that Dick Cass served in that capacity for a long time, right? And, you know, uh, not to say that whoever it is going to be perfect, but man, I'm not going to sit here and defend their leadership. There hasn't been any. I mean, that's the problem. There hasn't been anyone. It's kind of been the, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I mean, that's what it's been. Where has the contrition been? Where is the,
Dude, this guy worked for John Angelos, who was out doing all sorts of things, and he had to sort of walk around when I go up to him in Fort Myers and say, "Where's my press pass, dude? Wait a week, we'll have new ownership." I'm still waiting to hear from Mike Elias. That was almost a year and a half ago now. I mean, these people have been like gangsters in regard to me. Just dishonest, Mark Fine, no bueno. None of these people. And fans aren't responding to it, period. And that's that.
well,
I
it
mean,
comes down to this. It comes down to this. You have an organization and a front office more specifically, and this is where I would, this is where Mike Elias needs to evolve and adapt and improve if he's going to continue to be the general manager moving forward. That they have prioritized pushing the future and delaying gratification as much as possible. And the PPI thing with Dylan Beavers and Samuel Basayo is the latest example of that, and the trade deadline an example of that. But it is amazing to me. It's staggering how much enthusiasm and goodwill that new ownership and the front office, which has been here longer, but the front office that led the Orioles to where they were a couple years ago. It's amazing, however, how much enthusiasm and goodwill that group has staggered in a year and a half, right? It's
Well, we talked about this a year and a half ago, whether it was me and Marty Conway and, Maury Brown. I remember Barry Bloom used that word you used this week. He called it scar tissue. You called it scar tissue. Healing. I called it trauma. They haven't even, they've just piled on.
right. Well,
Why don't they just bring Bader back over and let him run it again? Bring TJ Brightman back.
and there's just been no acknowledgement whatsoever of just how miserable this and Mike Elias did say I'm sorry
I'm
a
sorry.
couple days after. No, but I'm trying to I'm trying to be as fair as I can be here.
Come and
He
leave my
acknowledged
press
it,
pass at the
but
gate tonight. You're sorry.
but
Sorry.
but that's been the extent of it. And forget about the media for a moment. Speak to your fans.
That's how you speak to your fans. You answer tough questions from people
But
when
they can
they ask them.
but they're not even but
Not from your
Nestor,
your
I
peanut
know.
gallery. They're
I
not being challenged by anybody. They're not being held accountable. Kyle Goon wrote a thing about them the other day, and now they'll treat him like manure. You know what I mean? Like that's who they are. That's who they are. I mean, come on, dude. You've been around this 20 years. I don't expect this to get better. But all I'm saying, and I'll leave it at this, because Joe Enoch had a great point about walks and strikeouts and sort of philosophy that next time we get together, I'd like to do a deeper dive on that. But the notion that whoever's running the baseball team, and I don't mean the Stan Kasten or the Larry Lakina, I'm talking about the baseball Willy Wonka, the Mike
Mhm.
Elias, whoever that is going to have to spend a significant amount of Mr. Rubenstein's money in this offseason, and that needs to be done with confidence. And that's where one Corbin Burns is $250 million. So if you want to sign a real pitcher, if there is such a thing, if Scooble were available and you wanted to go get a guy, that's what it costs to get a number
No,
one
it
starter.
doesn't. I, I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this. You don't have to sign a $300 million pitcher to have a good starting rotation. I mean, you just don't. I,
But you can't
they're
sign
not.
$18 million 41-year-olds either.
There needs to be a middle ground here, right? I'm not saying they go from one extreme to the other. I think that'd be foolish to go sign a pitcher to a $300 million contract for what this team is and what their
What if they
payroll.
signed a 3-year deal for
Well,
$90 million for a pitcher,
then
right?
you're talking my language then, right? I
Okay,
mean,
but that's still $90
sure,
million, and then there's
we
extensions and
agree.
this and
We
they're
agree on
they're going
this.
to spend $180 million on payroll next year if we're going to take them seriously, and they have what 40 million on the books.
I mean, it's
they're
not much. They have plenty to spend. Like even if
like.
you want to go on a lower end, even if you want to say they're at like
So
160.
is Mike Elias the guy the fans want spending it, and what can he bring back? It's like that Marlin Open in Ocean City. What's he going to bring back and put on the scale that we're all going to be like, good job. Here's my wallet. I don't know that there's anything they can do other than put a new leader in to maybe
Okay.
inspire. Hey, at least we're in a different
Who's
direction.
got,
That's
but
all I'm saying.
Okay, but who's the general manager that's going to inspire fans who, by your own admission, don't know the Rule 5 draft from a sacrifice bunt?
Yeah.
But that's part of my point as far as you can't let the fans drive your decisions on fixing the baseball. Now, tickets and marketing and just treating people better and being kinder and acknowledging how much of a mess this has been and how miserable this has been, absolutely. But I, I don't want fans deciding whether Mike Elias is going to be the general manager or not.
I don't think they're ever going to acknowledge that this is a mess.
Because I don't think the fans could even tell you who they want to be the next general manager then. So
They
that's
couldn't
kind of
even
my point.
acknowledge the other people were a mess, which is its own mess unto itself. So I'll wrap it at that. We'll talk about walks and strikeouts. We're going to talk about training camp. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboy. How about them Cowboy? Fake football this week. I'm really in Ocean City this week with real Maryland lottery scratch off. So that will begin next Thursday. Fadley's, Pizza John's, Coco's, Slancha, and Costas and Timoni. We're coming to get all of you, our friends at Curio, our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, as well as GBMC, putting us out on the road with the Crab Cake Tour, our 27th anniversary, so Luke and I can. My God, how many summers are we going to do this? Complain about last place. Stay with
It's a
us.
pleasure.
It is not a pleasure. Although your hat looks good and I want some pizza now.